Okay, the next layer I added was the bass. So let's talk about that. So here it is. Okay. And there's a little bit of bassline changes. I came up with the basic part first, which you'll be able to see at the outset here, which just basically mirrors the piano low notes. And I populated that through the song, maybe changed some of the octaves around where it felt really nice. And it just adds a layer underneath. I was going for something really pillowy, so I didn't want something that added too much tone to the track. I just wanted to add fullness. So I've gone with this MiniBit, not to be confused with the mini verb that I showed you before. The mini verb is a delay that the AudioThing, the company AudioThing, kindly just gave me when sometimes my bass hangs in this weird way when it's playing. It's really interesting. Something to do with maybe this plugin in the MIDI. But so this is just a basic synth, and the mini verb, the other plugin, I kind of got for free when I purchased this, which was really nice, of AudioThing. And you can hear a few different things going on here. So this is a volume LFO that's warbling the sound. I'm going to take that down to 0. Take it back up to where roughly it was. I think around 30. This is the Attack, Decay, Sustain, Release. It has a super long release on it, this bass. It's ringing for a long time. I'm using a triangle. Triangle has a bit of top end on it, but it's similar to a sine. I tend to like it more than a sine because it has some overtones and you'll be able to hear it on smaller speakers. But I'm still going to do a lot to make this more audible on small speakers, and I will get into that. So I have the filter way down. If I turn the filter off, there's no off button for the filter, but let me just see what we're at. So we're at about 500. Open it up. Okay, so there's a ton of tone there, right? But I'm not really letting a lot of it come through. And I've got a little resonance here to get a little bump in around 500, because that's a really good spot to bump up your bass without it getting woofy to hear in small speakers. So I'm using the resonance to create a little bump that you can hear it when it goes up high. You can hear like it's a bit thick, and that's partly that. There's none of the delay on it. There is a delay option, and there's none of the bit crusher. So that's the sound there. Then, surprise, surprise, Decimort again. What I was showing you before. I'm on 14-bit here. I must have not liked the noise. Let's turn that off. Not an absolutely monumental difference. It's definitely adding some crispiness on the top. Again, it's partially coming down to this jitter, and I usually don't drop the sample rate super far because you get this really crunchy kind of aliasing effect that I don't really like. But I do like dropping it close to our hearing range, and you do get some overtones that cross over. And then of course we've got no, we don't have a low pass filter here. This is not filtering the sound. This is not filtering any of the high frequencies out. And what I forgot to mention the first time on the Decimort on the drum track is that it's really, really awesome. The drive on it, I really love. So I'll start there. I'll start by bringing the signal, like heating up the signal a bit. And of course, I'll control the output knob to level that out. But the crunch that it gives when in moderation is really great for getting things to cut. Then I have Filterfreak, and I think I probably did this because I'm guessing I didn't want the particular filter sound from the Decimort, but also, I can see that I do have some envelope on it, meaning that every time a note hits, the filter opens a bit and it gives a little sort of crisp start to the sound. I've got the attack as fast as it will go and the release is fairly slow. So let me roll off this, I'll turn off this little bump in the frequency that we're getting. Quite muffly generally. Bring it up to here. You get a little attack, you get a little crispness on there. I can take it really far so you can hear what's happening. Anyway, you get the idea. Then I've got Decapitator Classic plugin. A lot of people have heard of this and used it. I'm doing a lot to this bass, and there's a few reasons for that. Bass is problematic. You need to get it out of the way of other things. You want to give I personally feel you want to give the impression of a lot of bass without a lot of bass swamping your track. And one of the things that's really important is getting some distortion, some harmonics onto that bass sound, especially if it's really low like this, because you want it to at least partially appear on smaller speakers. And that is not going to happen for you if you have like a sine wave or a triangle or something that's really thick sounding like that. You will not hear it on small speakers because it doesn't have any overtones. It has no harmonics naturally. So either by wave folding, which I actually honestly don't know a lot about, but I do have a wave shaper plugin that I sometimes use. Again, that's from AudioThing. I think it's called Wavebox. And that can be just the ticket sometimes to add some higher frequencies into a bass without it getting too gnarly sounding, basically. Like, I don't take it gnarly and crunchy, like that is very, very obvious, but let me just bypass the Decapitator so you can hear how it translates, and this will probably be more evident on a smaller speaker. Oh yeah, a lot of low frequencies dropped away there. Low mids. Okay, putting it back on. Oh yeah, it's very obvious. It crunches out and pops out a lot more. But part of that will be the rest of the chain because it's loading up the other plugins like this Reddi, which is again from Kush Audio. And this is a model of a DI box that A Designs made for years and is pretty iconic tube direct box sound for basses. So the model of this can add a lot of crunch too. And you can add low end with this, but usually leaving it roughly straight up if you want it to appear similar to where it started. I think it scoops a little low mids out, but not at the expense of the tone because it's adding a lot of harmonics to it. So let's check that out, bypass it. Just even more harmonics and even more crunch. And then next in line is one of the newest plugins I've purchased, and I'm really happy with this. And it's called Vulf Compressor, which is from Goodhertz. This has a really sweet motion to it. Again, it's going to bring me back to some of my youth interest in music because this compressor is based on a specific Roland sampler, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't remember the name of the Roland sampler, but it's based on a vinyl mode on the Roland sampler, which had a very nice ducking effect. And this is taking a partial side chain. You see the word side chain in the middle here. It's taking a partial side chain from the kick of the main drum part. But one thing to consider about that is this has a gradient sidechain, so it's taking 60% sidechain signal and it's compressing partially based on the actual bass itself, so it's a blend. And that is something I don't have on any other device. It also has this wow, which, you know, will pitch warble, and I've always loved pitch warble, like subtle kind of wonk in the sound, and you probably can hear that in a lot of my stuff. And this gives me a lot of options, because when I'm compressing to get some movement up and down in the sound, I can then change the speed of this warble or the amount of this warble, and it can be on various sound. Yeah, my video cut off there for a minute, so I hope I can pick up. It has the warble, and there's various speeds to the warble, and it's a really gentle effect that you can blend in to taste on this wow knob over to the left. And when all the tracks are just subtly pitch warbling at different times and different rates, you can get a really cool thing. The dry wet on this is also, like, it sounds stunningly good to blend it in at a mix. Let me just show you the effect of this. It's partially warbling because of the ducking of the kick. So it's actually leaving room for the kick by sweeping in and out. Okay, so the volume comes up immediately, but you can definitely hear that it's a very even bass sound now. You won't necessarily notice the way that it's ducking. Maybe if I put the drums back on. Let's do that too. Okay, so they're together now, and I'm gonna turn it off. It's louder, obviously, but you can hear it, the very edge of the attack on every kick, right? This sort of tucks it in behind the kick. And the last thing that I want to show you is I've taken to doing some dynamic EQ on basses, especially because they ring out in certain cases. And basically I have a detector here in a single instance of the Reaper EQ. So I'm listening mostly to like around 150 Hertz, which is a little bit faster and a little bit more responsive than listening to the super low frequencies. So I can get an attack off that. And then I've got a low shelf. And what's happening with the low shelf through the MIDI link is it's pulling in the signal from this band limited other EQ that I just showed you at 150 Hertz. And every time the bass note hits, it has a slow attack, so at first it lets all the bass through. So on the initial hit of the bass, it's full frequency, and then it gradually limits the bass, and then when the bass falls away, it gradually comes back to full frequency. So it's just sort of taking, if it makes sense to you, bass away, low end away from the decay of the bass sound. We can turn this off for a minute. Very even low frequency content all the way through to the ends of the notes. Listen. Right? Now. Just leaves a bit more room for everything else. And you can blend that to taste as well. So that's the bass. Let's put everything together for a moment that you've heard so far. I have to take a pause here because I'm having some difficulties with my phone capture at the moment. But I hope this has been instructive so far.